Hello and welcome back to Dungeons and Dragons 101 Character Creation. This is episode 2, which means we are going to be talking about classes and levels and what in the world is a class. So pretty much a class is kind of a general designation and it isn't really a job. It's more of a general designation of a group of skills and kind of a background for your character a bit too. Just sort of clumping together groups of skills that revolve around one kind of path that your character can take. In Dungeons and Dragons, there are a few of these. I'm going to just list them off from my handy dandy player's handbook, as well as mentioning a few that aren't in here. So we have the Barbarian. So, what's kind of important to note, a Barbarian is pretty much what you can kind of imagine. Doesn't wear a lot of clothing. Their big feature is that they use their emotions, pretty much commonly referred to as their rage ability, to deal damage, to become very strong. They're melee fighters mainly. It's what they're really useful at. But there's a lot of roleplay that can still go around with a barbarian for those of you who are interested in roleplay. Next up is a bard. I personally love this class. Bards are like Swiss Army knives of Dungeons and Dragons, along with the rogue, which I'll get to later. Very much they have some cool, neat abilities. They can cast magic. They are able to do pretty much anything. They are very skilled, very versatile. They are associated with playing music or singing and using that to cast their magic. There's a lot that you can do with them. I'll probably go and have individual videos on all these guys, especially the Bard. I love the versatility of this class, especially when you can multi-class with it, which I'll talk about probably at the end of this video about multi-classing. And we got the Cleric. Every group needs a generic healer. The Cleric has always been a generic healer in Dungeons and Dragons, but that doesn't mean it needs to be. There's a lot of versatility with clerics. But generally, they are religious. They have a deity or a group of deities that they worship. That and that worship gives them magic, and so that lets them cast the spells that they want to or they can prepare. Following up, we have the druid. So when people talk about druid, think of white robed men in the wilderness with sickles. I like to think of the guy from Asterix. Getafix. Getafix a druid. Gotta love Getafix. Anyways, people think the druid is natural magic. That's pretty much what he kind of is. Sometimes they're priest, sometimes they're wizard based. You can kind of build any background around this. The whole idea is that you have nature magic, very nature based. In the old editions, they used to not be able to actually use metal except for certain items, um, which was kind of funny. But they don't do that anymore. We have fighter. Again, another very versatile class. Probably. So I said that the bard was the most versatile. I meant that in general, as in like it can cover the most areas that all the classes talk about just by being one bard. The fighter is most versatile, probably in options, as in what sort of character you can decide to become from it. Unlike the bard, who's more of a jack of all trades. So fighter just means you are a human or not a human. You're a person who knows how to fight. Uh, they're usually tank characters, but they don't need to be. They could also be archer characters. Usually they are warriors of some kind, is what people like to go with. Human fighter is actually the most common Dungeons and Dragons character ever. Fun fact. Um, that was from D&D Beyond when they did a poll, so Wizards was in on that. Monks. Monks are very much Shaolin monastery kind of characters. They can punch you and kill you really easily. They're really good at punching. They pretty much are people who have mastered themselves and are great at hand-to-hand martial combat. And they're very fast. They're pretty cool. There's again, all the classes have a lot of versatility due to this thing called archetypes, pretty much, or some sort of subdivision in the classes. Certain ones have different names, but I'll talk about that later. So we have the Paladin. And the Paladin was originally based off of the Knight in Shining Armor. But pretty much how they work now is a Paladin is a fighter-like character and sort of a cleric-like character, depending on how you want to roleplay them. The idea is that they have a code. By following that code, they get powers, and their whole thing is to follow that code or to obey it. If they don't obey it, then they become this thing called an Oathbreaker Paladin, and it's a lot of detail that you don't really need to know about right now. A lot of people play them lawful. That is an alignment thing. I'm going to talk about alignment next video. Anyways, Paladins are pretty neat. People usually don't like them because they are commonly the stick in the mud character, lawful good, you can't do anything. But it all depends on how you want to play the Paladin. There's a lot of ways to play it that aren't like that. You know what? I'll put a link to a video by WebDM. Yeah, and they do a great video talking about how to roleplay a Paladin. Actually, I'll put a link to all the classes because they talk about sort of ways to look at these for those of you who are interested. So besides the Paladin, we got the Ranger. Think Strider or Aragorn, I guess. Lord of the Rings characters, again, great reference. They are kind of the guardians between nature and civilization. They're able to cast spells. Some people don't like to view it as casting spells, view it as more of ability based. But they're pretty neat. They're usually hated on for not being powerful or for, but there's a certain aesthetic from a ranger that you don't get. And mainly it's the power gaming characters power gamers, people who play to win or to be super awesome, super powerful. I can't get any good combos out of the ranger. Yeah, but there's a certain aesthetic of playing a ranger that you get. So it all depends on how you want to do it. They also, Wizards of the Coast came out with a revised ranger in an Unearthed Arcana, which are these little documents that they put out about changes they might make. But they don't always apply them. They usually come out in later source books like this. Except this one is not a later source book. A later source book would be my Xanathar's Guide, which I can't reach right now. So, that's the Ranger. We got 4 more to go. We got the Rogue. Yeah, Rogue used to be called the Thief back in the old editions. It is your scoundrel kind of character. They can be assassins, Sherlock Holmes style characters. The big thing that people remember with Rogue is they have a sneak attack ability, which means they can sneak up behind someone, stab them, and then that deals extra damage when the person didn't see them strike them. See them before they strike them. Yeah. I forgot to grab water. Okay, anyways, we're going to talk about the Warlock next. Warlock, and then we'll come back up. Warlock. Pretty much you have a sugar daddy. No. Okay, the Warlock is actually kind of interesting. The idea is that they made an agreement with some being that isn't cleric-based, so usually isn't a god. It could be a celestial being, but that being gives them powers, and in return the Warlock has to follow a contract that they made with their patron, is what we call that being. Different patrons give different abilities. Usually it's up to the DM to come up with how the patron acts towards the player, but the player should have input on this when they create it. We'll talk about that probably more when we talk about flavor for characters, because that isn't always a necessary piece. But that's Warlocks. We have Sorcerers. And a Sorcerer is a person who can cast magic because they have it in their blood. It's in the blood. They are very much interesting. There's a few different varieties because the magic is based off of usually what kind of way it affects you. My favorite is the Wild Mage, which is just like you have magic in you. There is no way to control it. It will just do random stuff. So whenever you cast a spell, there's a chance that you might turn into a plotted plant, or you'll cast a really powerful spell right on top of yourself, or you might heal 20 HP, or nothing will happen. Usually nothing happens, but they're kind of neat. And there's a lot of different ways that it works based on the different types of magic. Those are all the different subclasses. And finally, we have the wizard. Wizards. Everybody knows what a wizard is. It's a guy or girl, human being who studied magic and can cast magic. By the way, just it's important to note, Harry Potter, right? Harry is magically able to cast stuff because of something in his genes, genetics. He comes from wizards. That makes him a sorcerer, not actually a wizard in Dungeons and Dragons terms. So, fun fact: wizards actually study magic and then learn how to cast it. They're pretty cool. I like wizards. And so those are all the classes in the player's handbook. However, there are other books. The newest class to be added was Artificer. And there's another one called Blood Hunter. But I don't know if that one is official yet. It is on D&D Beyond. The Blood Hunters pretty much, from what I understand it, they give away their blood to gain powers, which is it's pretty much edge. Pure edge. And so the Artificer is pretty much a magical engineer. Or alchemist, make potions, make items. They're cool abilities that they can actually craft magical items, which is great for everybody else in the party, or really great for the Artificer only. Anyways, each of these classes has different ability scores that are recommended for them, right? So the Barbarian is recommended you have strength. That makes sense. Bards are charisma based. Clerics are wisdom based. Druids are wisdom based. Fighters are strength or dexterity based. Monks are dexterity and wisdom based. You should probably be good in both of these. Paladins use a lot of strength and charisma. Rangers have dexterity and wisdom. Rogues have dexterity. Sorcerers are based off of charisma, which is kind of interesting. Because it comes from them, right? So their personality is what gives the magic. My personality is what brings forth this power. The Warlock also has charisma, probably it's because it's how well they can actually make their patron like them. It's how strong their spells are. Wizards are, of course, intelligence-based. The other ones we'll probably cover another video. We're going over the basics, which means it is what's in here, what's in the basic books. So, based off of our character, we probably want something with high wisdom, high charisma, probably wisdom-based. We could be a cleric. Just Zook the cleric. Or we could be a druid. Or we could just be annoying and pick something that we're really bad at. Just Zook always wanted to be a fighter. He never got the chance. And that's always a fun thing to do. So you know what? Because we don't want to be super... I don't want to power game this thing. You know what? Let's be a clumsy monk. Like, he just can't do... He can't do any acrobatic stuff. He can't do backflips. He can't run fast, really, or when he runs fast, he trips sometimes. But you know what? He is wise. He knows it all. So we're going to be a level 1 monk. So up here at the top, I put in monk 1 to show that I have 1 level in monk. Now we're going to do all the things that we get from being a monk. So let me pull up monk in my handy dandy book. And we'll get started. So, the monk. I would read the description, but I really don't want to. So, the neat thing about monks is they have this thing called key points, but we don't need to worry about that because we are only level 1. So, what happens? There is a thing called a quick build that they recommend, which is have dexterity as your highest, which we don't, followed by wisdom. And they recommend having a background called Hermit. We'll talk about backgrounds in the upcoming video on backgrounds and flavor. So, what we get. So there's things called hit dice. Hit dice are pretty much the dice that we use to give ourselves ability. Sorry, the dice we give to give ourselves HP. So, for the monk, you have a number of hit dice equal to your level in monk that are monk-based hit dice. So as a monk, we use the D8. So that is this handy-dandy guy. That is our default dice for HP, which pretty much means when we level up, we roll a D8 and then add our Constitution modifier of +1, and we then add that to our HP, and then we get an extra hit dice. But at level 1, they give you the flat amount of 8, and then they get you to add your Constitution modifier. So first of all, we have 8 plus 1 HP, which means we got 9 HP. So we put that up here as our maximum, which means I'm pretty squishy, but I could be a wizard with like 7 HP. So our hit dice, we have 1d8. Hit dice are useful for certain abilities. Usually they're used up during a short rest. The short rests and long rests, I'll talk about that in another video, but pretty much during a short rest, instead of gaining all your HP, you can expend a hit dice and then roll it and add your Constitution and get that amount of hit points. So, we've got 9 HP. What else does it give us? Let's go to our proficiencies. So as a monk, we are not proficient in any armor. We cannot wear any type of armor without any negative effects. However, we can use simple weapons. We'll talk more about weapons and armor and inventory stuff probably in the next video. We get... what else do we get? We also are good with short swords, which is cool. I wonder if Shadowversity has a video on short swords. Anyways, we then get one type of artisan's tool, or a musical instrument. You know, my charisma's high. Let's say, like, you know what, this guy was he used to, like, he had to play yeah, no, you know what, his parents forced him to play violin when he was little. He learned violin. Violin. So he knows how to play a violin. Now, there's also tools. Again, we'll talk about this more when we go over backgrounds and flavors in the next video, and equipment. But yeah, that's my proficiency. I'm proficient with a violin, which means I'm really good at playing it. I can play a violin pretty well, and people will like it. Then we get saving throws and skills proficiency. So as a monk, I have proficiency in strength and dexterity saving throws. Thank God. That should cover up for my inability in either of those. As a level 1 monk, my proficiency bonus is +2. Proficiency bonus is actually not based off of how much you have in one class. It's a total amount of levels added up. So if I had, for example, 1 level in monk and 4 levels in bard, I would still be a 5th level character, and as a 5th level character, my proficiency bonus would be 3. But that's not important right now. So now we have to give ourselves some skills. We got a few options here: acrobatics, athletics, history, insight, religion, and stealth. And I can pick 2 of these. We are not good at acrobatics or athletics. So let's take one in history. And insight, because we should pick one that we're actually good at. There we go. There we are. So that's our 2 skills. So these skills would take... So if we wanted to do a skill check, for example, in the game, the Dungeon Master says, hey, make an insight check. And I talked a bit about this in my first D&D 101 video on the essentials. What we would do is we would roll the d20 like this, and then we would add our modifier right here, and then we would add our proficiency bonus. And there are certain abilities that will double your proficiency bonus or add more to this, in which case I would put that in here. So if it was doubled, I would then add another +2. And you can't see that probably on your screen, but I typed +2 in there originally. Anyways, for example, right, we want to make an insight check. I'd roll. I got a 12. Beauty. So it'd be 12 plus 4 plus 2 because I'm proficient. That's pretty good. That gives me an 18. Unlike if I wanted to make an acrobatics check per se, and I rolled a 4. Be 4 minus 1, and we're not proficient, so we don't get anything. So that would be a 3, which means I'd probably fail at it. What else do we get? So then it goes on to give us some recommended equipment. The recommended equipment, you usually have two options. Either you can buy equipment later and roll for numbers, or you use the recommended equipment from your background and your class. I'll talk about that more in the next video. So what else do we get? We get, at first level, we get two abilities: Unarmored Defense and Martial Arts. So, as a monk, we have, let's see, Unarmored. I mean, we already know what Unarmored Defense does. It doesn't actually need any of these things. What it does is it gives you 10 plus your Dex modifier plus your Wisdom modifier as your armor class, because we can't wear armor. So in general, your armor class is actually just, if you're not wearing anything, it's 10 plus your Dexterity, which would make mine at 9. And what armor class is, for those of you who don't know, the armor class is the value that when someone attacks you, right? We roll to attack, we roll a d20, we add the attack values. If they get past this number on their roll, with all the stuff added in, then they hit you and then they can deal damage. So this makes me pretty vulnerable. But as a monk, I get that, and then I add my Wisdom modifier. So this brings me up to a 13, which isn't too bad. If I was wearing normal armor, it would be much worse. Actually, let me double check this. You got Dungeons & Dragons Unarmored AC. Because I didn't do my research. Yeah, it's 10 plus a Dexterity modifier. So as a monk, I get my Wisdom added onto this, which I just did. What's this little thing you might be asking here in between armor class and speed? This is your initiative. Your initiative is pretty much what you, at the beginning of combat, the DM usually says roll initiative. That's to determine the order in which you will all go. This is, there's certain abilities that add to this, but what is the base value is just your Dexterity modifier, so mine is -1. So if I went, I would roll and I'd get I got an 18. Hey, yay. So that would be a 17, and then if someone had a higher value than a 17, whether they were player or monster, it would be their turn before mine. Got it? Okay. So we have one other ability that we get. We get Martial Arts. I'm just going to write it down here as Martial Arts, but I'm probably not going to write down what it does, because that's a lot of text. So, Martial Arts. Pretty much gives me mastery of combat skills. So, using a short sword, simple-handed weapon. I gain the following benefits when I'm unarmed or wielding a monk weapon, which is a weapon that I'm proficient with as a monk. And I'm not wearing armor or wielding a shield. So we'll put these down here because I want to reference them. So we have that. I can use my dex instead of strength for unarmed strike attacks, which means when you just punch someone. On attack and damage rolls. So this will come in handy when we put it in here. We also roll a d4 instead of the normal punching thing. This will change when you increase your monk level. So, for example, let's go with level 20. I'm level 20 monk. We'll roll a d10, a 10-sided dice, which means he can probably kill your average Joe just by punching them once. He can become One-Punch Man. Yes. And the other thing that we use is when you use the attack action with an unarmed strike. So when we just decide to attack someone, or we can make one unarmed strike as a bonus action. So when we attack, as bonus action, make another punch. I'm just going to put punch, because all that we do is punch as monks. It is just hitting things really hard all the time. Assuming that you haven't taken a bonus action. So of course, right, you can only do one bonus action per turn. So we get one other strike. So what I'm going to put in here, this is going to be our unarmed strike, which is unarmed. You know what? I'm just going to put punch. Punch. Yes. Uh, so your attack bonus is... Do I get to use proficiency on this too? I don't know if I'm actually proficient in this. Doesn't say I have proficiency in it, so I'm going to assume I don't. Anyways, that means that I have a -1 to punch. And when I deal damage, it will be 1d4 -1 bludgeoning damage. There are different types of damages in Dungeons and Dragons. This just determines the different ways that it hurts, how much it hurts. Bludgeoning is being punched like this. Piercing is poking. Stabbing. Slashing goes across. Then there's other ones that are more self-explanatory, like fire damage. I don't know what fire damage is. You're burning, pretty much. Ice damage is cold. Or it's cold damage. It is cold damage, which is maybe ice forming on you. Then there's radiant damage and necrotic damage. And yeah, I don't want to talk about damages because we're here to talk about classes. Pretty much, we leveled up, we picked one level, we got all these abilities from being a level 1 monk. And when you level up, which happens when you get enough experience points, you can then either take another level in monk or take a level in something else. So multi-classing, let's talk about that quickly. This is, I think it's an optional rule actually. Just like feats. By the way, feats are an optional rule. Talk to your dungeon master before you use feats. I won't be talking about feats in this video because this is the bare minimum essentials. But feats are cool. Not gonna lie. Feats are pretty cool. So. Here we go. Customization options. I don't think... Oh, I think it is not... I think it is allowed. I don't think it's optional. I think anybody can do this. Again, always check with your DM before you do it. I'm not going to grab this table, but pretty much to multi-class, you need to have a certain number, a certain ability score in some stuff to be able to take on that class, right? So you can't be really stupid and then decide to, I'm going to be a wizard with my with my 7 intelligence, which means a -2 modifier. For example, right, if you want to become a bard, you need to have a 13 charisma. Pretty much the base scores for all the classes need to be 13 for you to get in. So, if we wanted to, we could multi-class into anything wisdom-based. Anything outside of that, we can't have. So we could become a cleric or a druid. And that's it, yeah. So when you do that, when you multi-class, you go through the rules like normal. So you gain hit points. You gain a hit dice from that class. For proficiency bonuses when multi-classing, there is a table in the player's handbook. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but you gain certain proficiencies. For example, if we were to multi-class into monk, we would only get the weapon proficiency. So if we had been a rogue and then we decided to multi-class into monk, we would only get the simple weapons and short sword proficiencies. We would not get any of the skills that we got here. However, if you were going to multi-class into rogue, you get 1 skill from their skill options. Unlike the normal, I think it's 3 or 4 that they get. So that is multi-classing. There's also a bunch of rules around magic, but I don't want to talk about that right now. So we will go over that later. And that should be all for classes. So until next time, the next video, we will talk about backgrounds and alignment and flavor.